The media and fire department racing with sirens blaring to Piazza Navona would be no help at all. Without a word, Langdon slipped out the door and skirted the press, who were now entering the church in droves. He crossed Piazza Barberini. In the shadows he turned on the walkie-talkie. He tried to hail Vatican City but heard nothing but static. He was either out of range or the transmitter needed some kind of authorization code. Langdon adjusted the complex dials and buttons to no avail. Abruptly, he realized his plan to get help was not going to work. He spun, looking for a pay phone. None. Vatican circuits were jammed anyway. He was alone. Feeling his initial surge of confidence decay, Langdon stood a moment and took stock of his pitiful state, covered in bone dust, cut, deliriously exhausted, and hungry. Langdon glanced back at the church. Smoke spiraled over the cupola, lit by the media lights and fire trucks. He wondered if he should go back and get help. Instinct warned him, however, that extra help, especially untrained help, would be nothing but a liability. If the assassin sees us coming. He thought of Vittoria and knew this would be his final chance to face her captor. Piazza Navona, he thought, knowing he could get there in plenty of time and stake it out. He scanned the area for a taxi, but the streets were almost entirely deserted. Even the taxi drivers, it seemed, had dropped everything to find a television. Piazza Navona was only about a mile away, but Langdon had no intention of wasting precious energy on foot. He glanced back at the church, wondering if he could borrow a vehicle from someone. A fire truck? A press van? Be serious. Sensing options and minutes slipping away, Langdon made his decision. Pulling the gun from his pocket, he committed an act so out of character that he suspected his soul must now be possessed. Running over to a lone Citroen sedan idling at a stoplight, Langdon pointed the weapon through the driver's open window. "Fuori!" he yelled. The trembling man got out. Langdon jumped behind the wheel and hit the gas. 101. Gunther Glick sat on a bench in a holding tank inside the office of the Swiss Guard. He prayed to every god he could think of. Please let this not be a dream. It had been the scoop of his life. The scoop of anyone's life. Every reporter on Earth wished he were Glick right now. "You are awake," he told himself. "And you are a star. Dan Rather is crying right now." Mockery was beside him, looking a little bit stunned. Glick didn't blame her. In addition to exclusively broadcasting the Camerlengo's address, she and Glick had provided the world with gruesome photos of the cardinals and of the Pope ! As well as a live video feed of the antimatter canister counting down. Incredible. Of course, all of that had all been at the Camerlengo's behest, so that was not the reason Glick and Mockery were now locked in a Swiss Guard holding tank. It had been Glick's daring addendum to their coverage that the guards had not appreciated. Glick knew the conversation on which he had just reported was not intended for his ears, but this was his moment in the sun. Another Glick scoop. The 11th hour Samaritan? Mockery groaned on the bench beside him, clearly unimpressed. Glick smiled. Brilliant, wasn't it? Brilliantly dumb. She's just jealous, Glick knew. Shortly after the Camerlengo's address, Glick had again, by chance, been in the right place at the right time. He'd overheard Roche giving new orders to his men. Apparently Roche had received a phone call from a mysterious individual who Roche claimed had critical information regarding the current crisis. Roche was talking as if this man could help them and was advising his guards to prepare for the guest's arrival. Although the information was clearly private, Glick had acted as any dedicated reporter would without honor. He'd found a dark corner, ordered Mockery to fire up her remote camera, and he'd reported the news. Shocking new developments in God's City, he had announced, squinting his eyes for added intensity. Then he'd gone on to say that a mystery guest was coming to Vatican City to save the day. The 11th hour Samaritan. Glick had called him a perfect name for the faceless man appearing at the last moment to do a good deed. The other networks had picked up the catchy soundbite, and Glick was yet again immortalized.